Right now, 3.5 million people are living inside a bay that every hurricane scientist in America calls the most dangerous storm surge spot in the country. The 2026 hurricane season starts in less than 2 months. Tampa Bay has no levee system, no seawalls, and no storm surge barriers. And the federal agency in charge of tracking the storms that threaten this coastline is facing a 27% budget cut, with more than 1,000 jobs on the chopping block, including 2 hurricane hunter flight directors. The shape of the land has not changed. The people have not moved. And the walls that do not exist today will not exist by June 1st. Every major disaster model and every hurricane scientist who has studied this coastline reaches the same answer. Tampa Bay is the single most at-risk major city in America for deadly storm surge. Not Miami, not New Orleans, not New York. Tampa Bay. 3 features of the bay's land and ocean floor come together to create the worst storm surge shape in America. Knowing how they work together is the difference between thinking Tampa Bay has a hurricane problem and seeing that Tampa Bay is the hurricane problem. The first feature is the ocean floor. Off Florida's Gulf Coast, the sea bottom slopes so gently that waters stay less than 300 feet deep for 90 miles out from shore. 90 miles of shallow water between the open Gulf and the coastline. That matters because of how wind works with depth. In deep water, hurricane winds push energy downward through the water. The surface moves, but the depth soaks it up. In shallow water, there is nothing to soak it up. The wind shoves the whole body of water toward shore, like dragging a hand across a shallow pan. The ocean floor works as a loading ramp for storm surge. For contrast, off Miami's coast on the Atlantic side, the ocean floor drops to 300 feet within just 2 miles of shore. The same strength hurricane creates far less surge on that coastline because the water has somewhere to go. Tampa Bay does not have that option. 90 miles of shallow shelf means 90 miles of water with nowhere to go but toward land. The second feature is the shape of the bay itself. Tampa Bay is Florida's largest open water bay, covering 400 square miles and reaching roughly 40 miles inland from the Gulf. Water enters through the bay's wide mouth between St. Petersburg and Anna Maria Island. Then the bay narrows. Old Tampa Bay squeezes north between Pinellas and Hillsborough counties. Hillsborough Bay funnels northeast toward downtown Tampa. The water has no choice but to press tighter. The tightest parts sit where building is thickest, where the hospitals are, where the highways meet, where 3.5 million people live right now. The third feature is depth. Or rather, the lack of it. Tampa Bay averages only 12 feet deep. 12 feet. That is not a body of water with any real room to hold extra water. During Hurricane Ian in 2022, spinning winds blew water out of Tampa Bay so hard that the bay floor was bare in some areas, dropping water levels by 5 feet. People walked out onto the dry bay bottom and posted videos. Social media treated it like a fun fact. Scientists saw it as a warning, because the same forces that drain the bay in hours can fill it past its banks in hours. The direction of the wind is the only thing that changes. The shape of the land is forever, and the surge models back up exactly what the shape of the bay predicts. The worst-case track is not a hurricane driving straight up the middle of the bay. It is a hurricane hitting land just north of the bay's mouth, near Tarpon Springs or Indian Rocks Beach, so that the eye wall's strongest winds sit right at the entrance to the funnel. Slow-moving hurricanes create even bigger surges because they spend more time pushing water into the tight bay. The modeled flood depths for a Category 3 on this worst-case track include nearly 15 feet in northeast St. Petersburg, roughly 10 feet at Tampa International Airport, and over 16 feet at Apollo Beach, a Category 3, not a 5, not even a 4. And those models used sea levels from 2 decades ago. Sea level in Tampa Bay has risen about 8 inches since 1946. That is nearly a foot higher than during the 1921 hurricane. Every inch raises the starting point from which surge begins. A 2045 Category 3 hurricane will push surge equal to today's Category 5 in some Hillsborough County spots. The starting line has moved, and it keeps moving. By 2100, the bay could see another 2 to 8.5 feet of sea level rise. The high end would put parts of coastal Pinellas County underwater for good, before any hurricane shows up at all. Gulf of Mexico water temps have been running above normal for 3 straight years, and warmer water feeds stronger hurricanes with wider wind fields that drive more surge. Each degree of extra Gulf warmth and each inch of extra sea level makes the same strength hurricane more deadly than the last one. And here is what sits inside that surge zone right now. Tampa General Hospital is the region's only Level 1 trauma center, 1,100 beds. more than 8,000 staff, and it sits on Davis Islands, a man-made island in Hillsborough Bay linked to the mainland by 2 low bridges. Storm surge of just 4 feet tops its seawalls. The hospital lives or dies based on a movable flood wall called an aquafence, rated to hold back surge up to 15 feet. It takes a team of 60 people and 3 full days to set up. 15 feet is the limit. The disaster models predict surges that blow past that number by a wide margin. MacDill Air Force Base sits on a narrow strip of land sticking out into Hillsborough Bay with a peak height of just 13 feet. 13 feet above sea level, for a base that serves as home for both United States Central Command and United States Special Operations Command. During Milton in 2024, the Air Force flew roughly $5 billion in aircraft to Kansas because the base could not promise they would be safe. A 15-foot surge on the worst-case track would fully flood the base. Port Tampa Bay moves 37 million tons of cargo each year and serves as Central Florida's main supply line for gas and jet fuel. A major surge event would shut down fuel shipments across the region for weeks. Tampa's own 2025 risk report named sewage pump stations as the weakest type of city property, with over half sitting at heights that flood in medium surge events. If you are finding this useful, subscribe. We cover geography and natural disaster events like this every week with the full picture you need to actually understand what is going on. And the thread that ties all of this together is the math of getting 3.5 million people out. And that math does not work. Pinellas County is home to nearly 1 million people on what is basically a strip of land between the bay and the Gulf. 4 bridges connect it to the mainland: the Howard Franklin, the Gandy, the Courtney Campbell Causeway, and the Sunshine Skyway. All 4 can be closed when high winds or waves make crossing unsafe. The Skyway shuts down at steady winds of just 45 miles per hour. Clearing Pinellas County for a Category 3 hurricane takes 23 to 26 hours. For a Category 4, the number climbs to 32 to 45 hours. For a Category 5, 41 to 50 hours. Good forecasts, nailing down the exact landing spot, usually come 24 to 36 hours ahead of time. And hurricanes can go from tropical storm to Category 5 in a single day. 23 hours to get out, 24 hours of good forecast. That leaves a gap of roughly 1 hour for an entire metro area to get the order, pack, and hit the road. For a Category 4 or 5, the math does not work at all. Kathy Perkins, the Pinellas County Emergency Chief, slept on an air mattress in her office through both Helene and Milton in 2024. The message before Milton was blunt: do not put your faith in a wobble. Everyone in Tampa Bay should think of themselves as ground zero. Across 6 counties around Tampa Bay, evacuation orders covered areas home to nearly 4 million people, with less than 48 hours of lead time. Then there is the panic evacuation problem. During Hurricane Irma in 2017, an estimated 6.8 million Floridians left their homes. Roughly 3 million of them were not in evacuation zones at all. They just got scared and drove. That mass exit created 20-hour drives to Georgia and turned Interstate 75 into a parking lot stretching from Central Florida to the state line. During Hurricane Rita in 2005, panic drivers caused gridlock that led to over 100 deaths, more than 80% of the storm's total toll. The escape was deadlier than the hurricane. Tampa Bay, with its 4 bridges and its one-way-out strip of land, is exactly the kind of choke point where panic evacuations turn deadly. And the 23 hours needed to clear Pinellas County assumes none of that chaos happens. Tampa Bay got a taste of all of this less than 2 years ago. In September 2024, Hurricane Helene made landfall as a Category 4, a full 100 miles north of Tampa Bay. The storm was not aimed at Tampa, and it still drove 7 feet of storm surge into the bay, the highest water level on record since tracking began in 1947. In Shore Acres, a neighborhood on the northeast side of St. Petersburg, 82% of homes took on water. Kim Culbertson came home 8.5 months pregnant to find 4 feet of standing water inside her house, and everything she had set up for her baby ruined. Scott Garrick spent the morning after Helene watching police boats search for his in-laws. They had lived in Shore Acres for 50 years. It had never flooded before. Joe Lowery, who lives on Helena Avenue in Shore Acres, went to sleep with an inch of water on his floor. He woke up with his mattress nearly underwater, the level 3 feet higher than when he closed his eyes. The surge had come in the middle of the night, when the bay was dark and the streets were empty and no one could see what was coming. Across St. Petersburg, 10,000 homes flooded. Hillsborough County alone took $1.8 billion in damage, 7 feet of surge from 100 miles away. The models had shown this could happen. Helene proved every single one of them right. Tampa General Hospital put up its aquafence against Helene's 7 feet of surge and held. The hospital ran 15 surgeries while the Bay pressed against the wall, including a heart transplant. MacDill Air Force Base caught nearly 8 feet of surge, lost power, and shut down for days. The base tops out at 13 feet. The models predict 15 for a Category 3 on the worst-case track. Helene, from 100 miles away, got more than halfway there. 13 days later, Hurricane Milton nearly finished the job. Milton went from tropical storm to Category 5 with 180-mile-per-hour winds in under 24 hours. The early forecast track pointed straight into Tampa Bay. Tampa's mayor went on national TV with a message for people in evacuation zones. If you stay, you are going to die. Then the track wobbled south, and Milton hit land near Siesta Key as a Category 3, roughly 70 miles south of Tampa. Had Milton followed its first track, the surge would have reached 10 to 15 feet inside St. Petersburg and downtown Tampa. 3.5 million people were saved by a last-second weather shift that no one can count on happening again. Together, Helene and Milton caused $113 billion in statewide damage. St. Petersburg alone hauled away 2.1 million cubic yards of wreckage, the most in the city's history. Milton also dumped 19 inches of rain on St. Petersburg in 24 hours and kicked off 45 tornadoes across the state, and it missed Tampa Bay. A direct hit on the worst-case track, with 15 to 26 feet of water pushing through a funnel 12 feet deep, would have been a whole different kind of disaster. The federal planning drill called Project Phoenix tested a Category 5 hitting Indian Rocks Beach. The result was 26 feet of surge, 10 to 15 feet of standing water in downtown Tampa. Nearly 500,000 homes and businesses wiped out. $250 billion in damage, the costliest natural disaster in American history. In the test run, Pinellas County was cut in half by water. The 3 main bridges linking St. Nade, Petersburg to Tampa were wrecked or underwater. 40% of small businesses in the region closed for good. Disaster modeling puts Tampa Bay at number 1 for storm surge risk, over and over. The predicted losses from a 1-in-100-year hurricane come close to $230 billion in today's money, higher than predictions for New Orleans, New York, and Miami. And half the losses would have no insurance payout, because normal home insurance does not cover flood damage. Gray Swan hurricane modeling, which tests storms that have never happened but are physically possible right now, shows a possible surge of nearly 20 feet for Tampa Bay today. By the end of this century, the odds go up 14 times. The most extreme computer-built hurricane threw a surge of 36 feet. Hurricane Katrina's surge reached nearly 28 feet. Tampa Bay has no levee system, no built seawalls, and no storm surge barriers. New Orleans rebuilt after Katrina for $14.5 billion. New York put up a barrier after Sandy. Tampa Bay has a portable fence around a single building on a man-made island. The last major hurricane to hit Tampa Bay head-on came in 1921. 100,000 people lived there then. There were no high-rises, no hospitals on islands, no military bases on low strips of land. Today, it is 3.5 million. A 33-fold jump during the longest stretch without a major hurricane in the region's history. People who moved there in the last 30 or 50 years have never seen a big hurricane hit. They have seen wobbles and near misses that built up a belief that Tampa is somehow safe. It is not. There is exactly one plan on the table. Kevin Batdorf, a civic leader in Shore Acres, went to Tallahassee in February 2026 to pitch lawmakers on a 15-foot tall, 14-mile-long pullback wall at the Bay's entrance. It has no design study, no price tag, no timeline. It is an idea on a slide deck shown to state lawmakers who have not agreed to pay for it. The 2026 hurricane season begins June 1st. A growing El Niño may hold back storm numbers this year. Some outlooks are calling this the calmest season since 2015. Every forecaster agrees on one thing about calm seasons. It only takes one, and the northern Gulf Coast has been flagged as a higher risk area for 2026. And this is happening while the federal storm tracking system is being cut. NOAA's budget faces a 27% slash, more than 1,000 jobs gone, including 2 hurricane hunter flight directors. Without that data, forecasts get worse. Track predictions spread wider, and the warning time that Tampa Bay already does not have enough of gets even shorter. The National Weather Service is already running short-staffed at local forecast offices across Florida. The same offices that would be sending out evacuation warnings for 3.5 million people. Tampa Bay is spending money. $94 million on sewage pump stations. A $160 million grant for St. Petersburg. $34 million to stormproof a children's hospital. These are real fixes and they will save real buildings. But the basic equation has not changed. 3.5 million people. A funnel-shaped bay 12 feet deep. 90 miles of shallow ocean floor feeding it from the Gulf. 4 bridges that close in high wind. 23 hours to get out. 24 hours of warning. And a federal tracking agency losing the people and planes it needs to give those 3.5 million people the time they already do not have enough of. The real question is not whether Tampa Bay will face a deadly storm surge. Every scientist who has studied this shape of land and water agrees that it will. The question is whether 3.5 million people and 4 bridges and a single hospital flood wall can survive the answer. And the 2026 hurricane season is less than 2 months away.